This is At Home with ADTS, a show that presents topics of interest to older adults, individuals with disabilities, and their caregivers. At Home highlights the services and programs offered by Aging, Disability, and Transit Services of Rockingham County.
Welcome to this edition of At Home with ADTS, a program about supports and services offered by Aging, Disability, and Transit Services of Rockingham County. I'm Asheley Cooper, Director of Community Outreach and Development here at ADTS. ADTS has been in operation in Rockingham County since 1973, and our goal has always been to assist and to link senior adults, people with disabilities, and their caregivers with information, opportunities and services that promote and enhance the quality of life, as well as working to meet the local transportation needs of Rockingham County residents. We would like to give a special thank you to the United Way of Rockingham County for their longtime support of our program, Meals on Wheels. United Way of Rockingham County brings together local people to help raise local dollars to meet local needs, and we thank everyone who's given a contribution over the years. Today, we're going to discuss the role of support groups in education. Our guest is Lisa Levine, the Director of Education with the Dementia Alliance of North Carolina. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Ashley. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Before we jump into this topic, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the Dementia Alliance of North Carolina.
Sure. Well, Dementia Alliance has actually been around for about 40 years now. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that helps dementia caregivers and people living with dementia in the state of North Carolina. We provide services, respite, referrals, and education to anyone experiencing signs of confusion, cognitive changes, any kind of questions they might have, and lots of family caregiver support. And I'm the Director of Education, so I get to do all of the education pieces of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've worked together multiple times over this past year, and it's been a great partnership. So I'm excited to tell people about, inform them about the value of support groups as well as education. So can you explain what exactly is a support group?
Sure. Well, a support group is a meeting, usually that you'll go to, whether it be online or in person, where you're with like-minded other people. It could be for other caregivers. It could be for people that are going through a particular illness, but it's a safe place where you can talk about, share, and learn about the challenges of caregiving. It's somewhere where you're going, where other people have been walking in the same shoes that you've been walking in, people that just get it. You know, sometimes you can share your story with your friends, but they just truly can't comprehend because they've not been a caregiver themselves. So when you can go and be with a group of other caregivers and realize that you're not alone, you're not the only one that this is happening to, or you're not the only one that feels this way, it's such a relief as a caregiver. So support groups can be a lot of things for a lot of people, and it might be dementia related, like the ones that we do, but it could be other diseases, or it could be just caregiving in general. There's a lot of variety out there for support groups, and so there's something for everybody.
Yes, absolutely. I often hear caregivers say that they feel so alone and isolated when they're a caregiver, and that what they're experiencing as a caregiver, no one else is experiencing. And so they find a lot of times relief or validation when they attend support groups, to know that they're not alone in this, and that what they're experiencing and what their loved one is experiencing is normal. It's a normal progression and within the disease. So it takes a lot of the isolation out, but it's really hard. I do like the fact that more support groups are transitioning to online because a lot of caregivers don't have support to be able to step away, or they don't have the time, but they might be able to fit it in at lunch or in the evening. So I've really enjoyed that. And I'd like to hear a little bit later on what kind of support groups you guys are offering, whether in person or online. But before we get there, what are some of the benefits for someone who joins a support group?
Oh gosh, well, there's so many. I know a lot of our support groups start out as people who are caring for someone who don't know each other, but end in friendship. They're going through something that can be traumatic and challenging together, and so they come out as friends. So a lot of times, as you mentioned, caregivers don't have a lot of time to take. They're very isolated, and so this can connect them with other people. We can get rid of that feeling of isolation. Caregiving can be depressing at times, so it can help alleviate that. There can be a lot of anxiety with challenges that you're facing, and so it can help us get rid of the worry and the anxiety often. And caregiving is often very much reactive. We are constantly just dealing with symptoms and situations, and so this can sometimes give people a sense of control because they learn what's going to possibly happen, what's going to come up, and how can I be prepared for that. It also helps us set realistic expectations sometimes of what might happen, of what I can do as a caregiver, and it helps us learn the local resources that are out there. Sometimes we get so involved in this, we don't know who to ask for help. And so other support group members can share who they've used, how that might help, and give us a lot of suggestions for how we can make our situation better.
Yeah, absolutely. So our support groups, are they mainly just going in and talking, or do they usually have speakers, or is there a variety? Can you kind of walk us through what might be a typical experience in a support group?
Sure, sure. So there's a lot of variety, and I always suggest that people sort of talk to the facilitator before they go to a support group and find out sort of what kind of group it is and what's going to happen. There's a group for everyone, but they're not all the same, and sometimes you have to go to more than one before you find the one that works for you. So most groups you come in and there's a welcome, sometimes there's a socialization time, depends on too if you're online or if you're in person, but they can be educationally based. So it's where you go and you hear a speaker, you get time with that speaker to ask questions, and that's primarily what the group is. There's other ones that are support focused only. And so you go, you have a facilitator, but it's really the entire group discussing what's going on with them and sharing and learning from each other. And then you have groups that are both. You have groups that either occasionally have a speaker or they have a speaker for, say, the first 30 minutes, and then the next hour is support based. So there's a wide variety of groups and what they look like, where they're held. Even if they are in person, they're all held in all kinds of different situations and places. So you can find one that works for you at the right time for you. Because there's groups in the morning or the evening or the weekend, depending on your schedule and your loved one and what their needs are as well. So there's a lot of variety, and it can sound kind of overwhelming at times, but I know, like, for example, Ashley, people could call you and say, tell me about the group that you have, and you could explain it and encourage them to come. So there are resources they can reach out to get a little bit of a heads up before they get there.
Yeah, that's a really great point of calling beforehand. We inherited a support group from the hospital. The leader had been leading it for, I think, 5, 6 years. And so these group of ladies who've been caring for their loved ones with dementia had kind of been through the whole gamut of support. And so when the leader was transitioning out of the community, she took quite a bit of time and interviewed lots of people. And so we were very appreciative and grateful to have inherited them and to continue to support them. So I like the fact that like you recommend that you call and talk to somebody beforehand, because it can be a little overwhelming, I think, for caregivers to step into a place that they don't know anybody or anything like that. And plus, I know as someone who's been a facilitator before, it's nice to know who's coming. So
Yes.
if there is someone new, we can kind of get some background information, figure out how we can best plug them into the support group and those sort of things. So, besides, let me ask you this: where can people find information about support groups, as far as like where they're being held, that sort of thing?
Well, there's always the internet.
A great
Of course,
resource.
you can ask the Google. But I would definitely say that you can call, especially if you're looking for an age-related illness, and often just general caregiver groups. You can call the Council on Aging. You can call ADTS, for example, in Rockingham County, but you can call local county organizations and they can tell you lists of groups as well. You can also look for disease-specific organizations, and they usually have support groups. For Dementia Alliance, for example, we are dementia focused. So we have general caregiving groups, we have dementia specific groups, and then we also have groups that are for a specific type of dementia. For example, there's a type of dementia called frontotemporal dementia, and it tends to happen in people that are a little bit younger than with Alzheimer's. And so there's some different challenges. It's with people that are still working, possibly have young children. And so that group is going to have very different concerns than a group of spouses of people that are in their 70s and 80s with an Alzheimer's diagnosis. And so if there is a specific group for a type of disease, then it often lends itself better to those caregivers. There's also different groups depending on the relationship that you have with the person you're caring for. There's a group out there right now for adult daughters of parents living with dementia. And so it's very specific. There are male caregiver groups. So for gentlemen who are providing care to a loved one or a friend, even, there's groups like that. So they can be very specific in content, or they can be very general in caregiving. And again, that's a reason why you should investigate that group a little bit more. Sometimes I say too, not only speaking to the facilitator, but maybe asking if you can talk to a member of the group and ask them sort of their take on the group. Sometimes that can give you a better idea. It is intimidating to walk into a group of people that you don't know, and you have concerns, and you may not feel confident in your caregiving. Most of the groups, if not all of the groups, really are welcoming and accommodating to new members, especially if they know you're coming ahead of time.
Right. Right, absolutely. I know in Rockingham County, we offer 3 different types through ADTS of support groups. So we offer someone with a dementia diagnosis. So that's the one that we inherited, and which I find is a great resource for caregivers who are kind of starting out, or because it just comes with such a wealth of knowledge from experienced caregivers. A lot of them have chosen to stay on the group as their loved one has passed away, just to continue to provide some mentorship and support. And so we have that one. And then we also have one for individuals with traumatic brain injuries, as well as for their caregivers. So they come at the same time and we kind of separate them out. And then the one that you help us with occasionally is our After Hours Enrichment Series, which is more of an education-based support group, right? So we have different speakers that come in and speak about dementia-related topics for caregivers, and then there's opportunities for caregivers to communicate throughout that, to ask questions, and that's strictly online, the other 2 being in person. And we have found that's what caregivers are needing, especially who are full-time or working caregivers who may not have the resources to step away. So, and they happen various times throughout the day. Our caregivers support groups. We have them in the middle of the day and the evenings. And I think that's also important to look at, like, what your schedule can accommodate. So, excuse me. So speaking of disease specific education, I think that comes along with caregiving, right? So not only do you need to educate yourself about mastering new skills as a caregiver, but also learning about the disease that your loved one has. Do you think there's some value in that?
Oh,
Learning-
it's absolutely. I really, truly do. I think that it's important for you to have at least a basic understanding of whatever the disease is. And if there's multiple ones, that too, and how they can interact. A lot of times when we go to the doctor or get a diagnosis, they just don't have time to really share a lot of that information with us. And so sometimes it's up to us to dig a little deeper, or for us to go and find some additional resources. So for example, at Dementia Alliance, we provide a lot of dementia specific education, because while everybody is different and dementia affects every single person differently, there are some things that we can let people know sort of what to expect. You can figure out how to get prepared. And also, we really encourage people to learn what might happen so that they can be prepared in case there's a crisis before that crisis happens. When someone has to go to the hospital, we want them to already be prepared for that situation. And then if something were to happen to the caregiver, and there was an emergency with the caregiver, we would already want something in place for the person living with dementia or whatever the other illness is. And so we want to help those people really be prepared and more confident in what they're doing. And disease education can do that.
Right.
Also, it just takes a lot of the unknown away.
That's what I was going to say. It seems to really lessen some of the anxiety that comes along with caregiving. If you understand that what that person's behavior is doing is a normal thing, and that you just need to change maybe some of the ways that you respond to it, certainly makes things a lot easier instead of trying to figure it out. I'm one of those people. I like to learn. Like, if the wheel's already created, then I don't need to go look for how to do that. So I just need to kind of add to that wheel. But
Exactly. You can pick the things that are already out there that would work best for you. And instead of doing everything on your own, you can just pick pieces of material that are out there that apply to you. So, and you're right, there's a lot of times where, like, for example, someone with dementia may not want to take a bath, and you're not sure how to get them to take a bath. And so if you've been to some of our education classes, you might have some ideas on how to do that before the situation happens.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because they can also transition between different levels of care. One day they're having a great day, the next day they're not. So like you said, it's always really, there's some value in being prepared
Yes.
for what's supposed to come, and then how that lowers the anxiety. And you mentioned that sometimes the caregiver isn't always present. So is it good to, as you're learning about your loved one's diagnosis, that more people be involved in that process as far as engagement?
Yes, yes. We always encourage the entire family, or a lot of times we'll talk to people about creating a care team. And it doesn't necessarily mean healthcare professionals. It can be your neighbor and your rabbi and your best friend who lives 2 states away. They can all be part of the care team, and everybody has a different role. But as long as you're letting them know what you see their role as, then they can embrace that. And it's great for all of those people to get education. On the other hand, sometimes different family members are in different places in their acceptance of the disease or their understanding of the disease. And so you can share whatever you learn with them. They're not always going to accept that or take that in. And we can't force someone to be ready when they're not. But if we have the education and the resources available, then when they start to feel ready, we can share that with them. And sometimes they can help sort of offset the load of caregiving, because then they can understand better what's happening. So
Absolutely.
I
Something that
think everyone should be educated.
I
in it,
agree.
everyone.
Right? Knowledge is power, right?
Yes, yes.
Yes, absolutely. I know that when the this as we've transitioned out of the pandemic, one of the things that we started doing during it though was we increased our caregiving offerings online,
Mhm.
and one of the big benefits that they've reported back to us is that now family members like long distance caregivers can now participate.
Yes.
They can all participate as a family unit in that particular training session or education session. And so then if they need to come in and support at any point, they all have the same knowledge and the same expectation. And so we've seen more and more families reach, like, just sharing the link out, like, hey, if you want to jump on, feel free to. And it's been great. Like, the families have really responded positively in attending those sessions together. So I think there's some real value in
I
trying
think
to do
that's fantastic. And it can also just jumpstart conversations within
that.
those families about their person and that person's care and their specific needs that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah,
So, what a
absolutely.
great thing. Yeah. There
Yes.
are good things that came out of the pandemic.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree
Yes.
with that. I
Yeah.
would agree with that. So just like with support groups, most people, would you recommend going online and looking for these supports or reaching out to like aging services providers?
I would. There's a lot of information online. Most of it is good, but maybe not everything. And it can be overwhelming when you look at what is out there. So if you can find a resource that you trust and then ask them, even just as a starting place. Through the pandemic, Dementia Alliance, we've put up a lot of online content videos on YouTube, and I know you're doing that as well. So even if someone can't participate actively in an online face-to-face kind of Zoom situation, they can go back and watch a video and start to learn, and then start to find out what resources they do need. Maybe they don't even know where to start. And
Mhm.
so they can start to narrow down, okay, this is my plan. This is what I need to do. And they can either do that through an agency or those online resources. Sometimes there's books that we can suggest. And then there are, specific educators out there that are really good. So we say, if this person comes to an area near you, you should go and hear them talk and see that in
Mhm.
person. And if we know they're interested in information like that, then we can all share. So it is good to talk to those aging service providers,
Mhm.
dementia specific or other disease specific organizations as well, and any kind of social services support.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I also like to say that for the most part, most of it is free. The
Hmm.
so there's the cost shouldn't be a barrier for people to attend.
Yeah.
Sometimes the speakers have a cost associated, but for the most part, it's pretty. I know all the things that we offer at ADTS are free
Hmm.
for caregivers. So before we wrap up, I just would like to know, what is your key piece of advice for caregivers?
Uh, well, one of the main things I always share with people is just to realize that you're not in it alone, and that it is good to reach out for help, even if you feel overwhelmed, even if you're not sure what to ask for. Talk to people. People want to help you. They just need a starting place. And so I always say, you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to do it by yourself. So get that
That's
help.
very good. Yeah, definitely. So before we wrap up, what else, what support groups do y'all offer that people can access?
Well, we have an online listing on our website, which is dementianc.org, under our help and support tab. And we have well over 100 support groups listed there. And they're listed by county, so people can go in and find their county. They also have indicated beside them if they're online or in person, because we have some that are transitioning right now. And so if a group is online, you don't have to be in that county to participate. And like you said, we've had some families join from out of town or out of state even because of that. So a good starting place is to go onto that website and look at that list. go to your website or call you and find out when your groups are, and ask about different types of groups according to what your particular situation is.
Excellent. And I just want to reiterate that on the second Mondays at 1:30 at the Leaf Center, which is in Reedsville, we do offer our caregiver support group, Loving Somebody with Dementia. And then the following Monday, we offer our traumatic brain injury at the same time, 1:30. And then online, strictly online, we have our after hours enrichment series, which is at 6 p.m. And you just sign up for that and we send you the link. And if you're not able to attend, as we've discussed, we'll send you the recording. You can watch it at your own pace and at your own time. But that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much, Lisa. We really appreciate it. Just real quick, how can someone get a hold of you?
Well, they can give us a call at 919-832-3732 or go to our website, www.dementianc.org. And we do help everybody in the state of North Carolina, so nobody should hesitate to call.
Wonderful. Thank you. I hope you found the information today beneficial and informational as well. For more information on the programs and services that ADTS offers, you can visit our website, which is adtsrc.org, our initials, or you can always give us a call at 336-349-2343. We thank you again for joining us today. And remember, the ADTS is here to help you and your family to age with dignity and independence in your own home and community. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to At Home with ADTS. For over 45 years, Aging, Disability, and Transit Services of Rockingham County has focused on enhancing quality of life for individuals by empowering them to achieve optimum health and well-being, independence, and participation in community. To learn more about community-based services, resources, or how to help, visit adtsrc.org or call 336-349-2343.